When I opened my eyes, the sun was up. However, it was still dark, as if burlap stretched over the world. I stood up. I could see blood dripping from my head. I touched my forehead, worried. I could feel hard protrusions. I pulled on them, hoping they were rocks stuck in my skin. They didn't budge. I prayed to anyone I could that they weren't skull chunks. I listened for running water. I had to look at my head before I did anything else. I wiped my forehead again. The blood was getting into my eyes. I stumbled around, practically blind. My fur was sticky with blood now, and it was still pouring. My face was growing cold under my fur. I screamed for help, hoping some plucky adventurers would rescue me. My stomach rumbled with hunger. I was getting weak. My cries for help grew more weak with each call. The eyes followed me. They could see me, but I couldn't see them. I felt like I was being hunted. I was in a defensive stance as I walked. I felt my forehead again. The hard lumps were getting larger and more defined. I gasped when I came to the shocking revelation. They were horns. I stumbled around, feeling my new horns. I called for help again. I was no longer a rabbit. I was a jackalope. I stumbled and fell again. I couldn't feel the ground. I fell further. I must have fallen into a hole. I kept falling. It must have been a pit trap. I screamed at that realization and hoped that there were no spikes at the bottom. However, I felt hope. If it was a pit trap, that means someone was here, someone watching the trap. They could help if there was no spikes. It wasn't a pit trap. I would have hit the bottom by now if it were. I was still falling. I could feel the wind caressing my fur as I plummeted. If I landed now, it would mean a couple broken bones, but I might survive. I begged to land. Please, ground, come to me. Stop my descent, please. However, no such relief came. Soon, it reached a point where, when I landed, I would die. I had fallen too far and for too long to be survivable. I was going to die. Mom and Dad would never see me again. They would forever wonder where I was. Would Mom come looking for me? She was a fighter, so maybe. I opened my eyes. The falling sensation continued, but I wasn't falling. It had been a trick of the mind. It was night again. I could hear chirping. Furthermore, I could see light and feel warmth to my right. I could hear the crackling of a fire, and I sat up quickly. The thing on the other side of the fire stared at me. It was so large yet so scrawny. Its arms were like branches, its fingers like twigs. Its movements were accompanied with snapping and crunching. Its cracked, leathery skin smelled like a corpse that had been sitting in the sun for days. The thing's immense size towered over me. Its shoulders were like a wagon. Its head was covered in white. I couldn't tell if the monster wore a mask or if its skin had split to reveal the skull beneath. I couldn't see its eyes. I did not have strength to scream. I could not run. I stared at this thing that could not and should not exist in this world or any world. Its heavy and raspy breathing ruffled what little of my fur that wasn't caked in stale, dried blood. Each sound it made put my nerves on edge and made my life flash before my eyes. It took me a moment before I realized I myself had stopped breathing.
What is your name?
The thing asked. The voice that came from the behemoth's throat was surprisingly soft, yet still carried an air of danger and evil. The fire is lovely, I said quickly. I knew the power of names in the Feywild. I would not let this thing own me. The thing did not respond except for a low growl. The noise drained my face of all color. My hands shook. I had to get out of here, but this thing would catch me in an instant. I had to think of an escape plan. How long have I been here? I asked.
You ask me a question when you yourself ignored mine.
The beast growled. Its long, twig-like fingers reached toward me, that awful smell coming closer. You asked me a question I could not answer, I responded. In this situation, it would be rude to exchange names in the nighttime. There was a long pause before the creature began to laugh. The laugh filled me with dread. It echoed throughout the entire forest, as if the entire Feywild laughing at my words.
Perhaps it is. As for how long it has been, time is a meaningless figment,
the thing said. It was like a force of nature. I was truly terrified and mortified that the world had produced something so profane.
You follow the pattern of day and night, but here there is no pattern.
What are you? I asked. The creature tilted its head. It seemed to be considering how to answer. It clearly was wary about giving me power over it. When it spoke, it did so cautiously.
I was once a doctor. I knew many things, both great and terrible, all of which I have forgotten. Myself and a party were heading towards a town. Our ranger took a shortcut. It was a decision that cost him his life. Myself and my party began to wander. The plants grew more vibrant, the animals more fantastical. However, anything we tried to eat or drink would attack or curse. We were growing hungrier and hungrier. I was racked with starvation, more so than my party. So I struck first, and I am still so very hungry.